Just real fast, guys, before we get started with this show, I know you're excited to hear about this one, but I wanted to let you know that I now have Glencairns. I don't know if you can see it right there. That is the shaman face, and it says the Whiskey Shaman on him. If you want a Glencairn, hit me up. But I don't know if you guys knew this or not, I still have challenge coins available. These are awesome challenge coins that actually fit right on top of your Glencairn to keep the bugs and nasties out. If you want a coin or a Glencairn or both, head over to shoot me an email or a DM on my socials, Whiskey Shaman Podcast at gmail.com. And I'm working on a storefront. I really am. I'm working on an online store, so you guys can just go click and buy from there. But that's 2025 goals. We're not there yet. So y'all head over to email me or in my socials and let me know if you guys want a coin or a Glencairn or both. Y'all be good. Thank y'all, and keep your spirits up.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we are doing a redo. We'll get all into that. Today we have Nathan with Rio Brazos Distilling. I'm sorry, I screw it up every time. You think we've done this before? You think I know by now? But we are going to talk about all the things that they're doing. We're going to get into all their brand and why they chose, where they chose, and what they chose. So without further ado, here's Nathan. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. And we're not glitching out, and so that's awesome. For a little bit of foreshadowing for the people, we already tried to record this podcast a while back, and I was not at my house, and so let's just say the media didn't work. The media team didn't work for us on that one. So I'm going to insert right here the little blip of that, and you'll see how glitchy it was, and you'll see why we wanted to redo this, because we were talking about some cool stuff when I could hear what was going on. So Nathan, I thank you again for coming back on here and hanging out with me. I know you're a busy man, and I want to make sure that I use your time wisely. So let's get into the meat and taters of it. Why would you start a distillery? Why are you doing what you're doing?
That's a really good question. When we started, well, no one had done any craft distilling in this area. Well, at least not legally ever. Right. And it was a totally different landscape at that time. It was 2012 when we got the lease, and 2013 when we sold our first bottle.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, I mean, a lot has changed. Really, I just wanted to make something. And I started off as a home brewer, and a cook, and just making stuff, and then realizing in college that when you make beer, you're never short of friends. And distilling kind of was it was kind of a natural evolution of just experimentation and having fun. And when somebody says, "Hey, can you make such and such?" and you say, after you've had one or two, first off, you say, "Well, hey, yeah, of course I can."
Yeah.
And eventually somebody's going to say, "Well, can you make whiskey?" And you say, "Well, yeah, of course I can. I mean,
sure.
Fractional distillation, sure." And then, 20 years later, It's just, and thousands of gallons and hundreds of barrels put away. Yeah. It started innocently. It wasn't that big a deal when we started.
Right.
But at some point, I've got friends that are in law enforcement, and my father's a physician,
Mm-hmm.
and these men are standing in my garage looking around saying, "Hey, you should probably get a permit for this."
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that's basically where it started.
Got it.
At some point, an electrician or a building contractor looks at you and says, "Do you have a license to be doing all this?"
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And that was really and that's been a huge amount of fun. Ever since we got started, but now that we're really have a chance to put more into our tasting room,
Okay.
it's even more fun because there's so many little projects you can do, and so many experiments, stuff that
Mm-hmm.
you can do on a small scale and mess up and not lose $5,000. You know,
right.
Or maybe you haven't lost $5,000. You've just made $5,000 worth of a spirit that very few people will ever want to drink.
Right.
If you do that in a 2-liter scale, you end up with some bottles of, strange experimental sweet potato green pea whiskey that, somebody, eventually somebody will try my sweet potato candy. And sorghum honey rum.
Ooh, I mean, that sounds good.
Yeah. If I tried making it commercially and selling it at your local store, I'd probably have to charge you about $300 a bottle. And nobody's ever going to pay that. And in the end, it tastes like sweet potato brandy.
So I forgot to ask beforehand, where are you located out of? I totally forgot to ask for the listeners, where are you located? Your distillery is located out of
Aggieland.
Okay.
We are less than a 5-minute drive from the second largest football stadium in North America, in Western Hemisphere, actually. So we are right here in College Station.
Okay, awesome. So I was telling some of my buddies that I was going to do a podcast with you guys, and one of them said, "Can you please ask him to move his distillery because I won't be able to visit it?" So I'm guessing he's a UT guy. I don't know. I'm not into sports ball, but I'm like, now I don't know if he's going to uproot his whole distillery just for you. But Doc, that one's for you.
You can visit us now. Now you'll be coming here every year. You'll be our guest. So
there you go. There you
go. We've already welcomed quite a few University of Texas folks.
It's a fun rivalry, isn't it? I mean, it gets a little heated sometimes, but
I'm kind of just stand back at the whole thing and watch it, kind of like a train wreck. I'm an Aggie. I graduated from New Mexico State University, so my wife's an Aggie, a Texas Aggie. My brother's a Texas Aggie. Everybody I know anymore is a Texas Aggie. So when they call me an Aggie, I just keep my mouth shut because I am an Aggie.
Right, absolutely. By proxy, of course.
No.
So that's funny.
I graduated New Mexico State University.
Yeah, right. Okay.
We were Aggies. We were Aggies first.
Yeah,
we just don't take it as
right. I guess you're right. I guess you're right. So once you guys decided, hey, we need to do this a little more legit and get the paperwork and stuff like that, were you just doing it out? I'm obviously in Texas, you can't do it out of the house. So did you just get a small piece of, a little on a strip center in town, or were you at a ranch or something like that?
In an industrial park.
Okay.
When we first went in, were trying to find places to let to us, it wouldn't. Very few places would call us back. Distillery, distilled spirits, and the few people who did ask me about, what kind of a whiskey bar, tasting room, I went back to, well, yeah, we are planning on having a tasting room, but we're also going to be a production facility.
Right.
We'll be filling barrels. We'll be, we'll be treating water. We'll be, stacking up flammable containers.
Yeah.
And, that usually ended the conversation right away.
Yeah. Normally it does.
Until we met Dennis Sullins, who owns Quality Enterprises Construction. And he also owns this industrial where we're located, and he had just started renting to the new friends of mine who owned New Republic Brewing Company.
Okay.
And so he didn't hesitate. He took one look at my setup and what I had in mind, and he's a contractor, and he understood what was involved, and so he was the only one who would rent to me. It was pointed out to me that the name of the town is College Station, not City of Industry. It's they don't welcome dirty, dangerous operations usually. Right. But once we got started, the people in this community came out of the woodwork to help us out in a million ways. We had a leg up. We didn't have any of a lot of the problems that you hear about distilleries opening up in especially in larger markets. I don't even want to. Just the problems that a lot of distilleries in a lot of parts of the country have as soon as they open up with, okay, well, you want to do business in our community? Well, here's what you have to pay us. We had the opposite in College Station. This was, you want to do a business in College Station? You want to help our community, help our economy, start employing people and make something? Absolutely. How can we help you?
Right.
The night that the guys from the brewing company let it out on Facebook that our tasting room would be sort of open, we had 50 people that night that we didn't know what to do with. We just were like, hey, here we have t-shirts you can buy. Yeah. We don't have hardly any. We had some White Dog whiskey, right, to give people in shots. That was all. And that's the opposite problem that a lot of folks have.
Absolutely. And another cool thing is like having, and I've heard this a lot about, especially more college stations, not just College Station, but more college areas. The community really comes out and they really want to help because they need infrastructure. They need somebody there that's local, that's going to give back to the community, because a lot of these people are from out of town, out of state, and they're coming in, and it doesn't really help the local economy where you guys are giving back to the local economy, like you're saying, employing people from that area and stuff like that. So it's really cool that they kind of give you a pat on the back instead of a kick out the door.
Exactly. And that's that is a big part of it. That, a huge population of the town doesn't really live here, or isn't going to live here for much longer.
Right. Sorry.
I mean, including my own employees. I primarily hire Aggie engineering students, and and these guys are gone. Hey, babe, Tiffany. These guys are gone. By the end of the semester, we're about to die. Phone's about to die.
It's always technical issues. That's always that's what happens right when you think you have everything lined up. It never is. So while you were talking, you don't know this, I'm sure, but me and a couple of buddies of mine did a YouTube thingy, and we were trying to find the best Texas whiskey, right? The best Texas whiskey.
I did. I saw your video. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So
I did swatch part of that.
Awesome. So one of your bottles was in there, and I have literally maybe half an ounce left in here. And this is the single barrel wheat whiskey. So what I'm going to do, I wasn't going to drink tonight, but since you're here, I'm going to pour whatever's left of this and have a little sip of it, because I feel like talking to the man making the stuff and drinking it along with him, just kind of gives you a little nod. So can you tell us a little bit about the wheat whiskey itself, and then we'll get into the whole production part, but tell us a little bit about your wheat whiskey and why you decided to do a wheat instead of some of the other ones.
Yeah. Partly because it's the main reason is because I really like wheat.
Okay. That's fair enough.
You put in we started off with a 5% wheat edition, and then moved it to 12 because that's kind of a stand. There's a very, 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 very popular mash bill that's at 12% on the flavor grain, and so we thought 12% flavor grain, and our flavor grain is wheat. Let's do 12%. And then we moved it up to 20%, and then we moved it to 25%. It just gets better every time.
Yeah.
In my and wheat is it's not as easy to work with as some, but it's a fun grain to work with, as opposed to rye, which
absolutely. I've heard more horror stories about rye than anything else.
It's miserable. As a home brewer, I know that a lot of it is just me being, I'm rye shy.
Mm-hmm.
But you decide to make a Roggen beer or whatever, and you wasted your entire Sunday with a set mash or a stuck mash or it's not worth it to me. And wheat gives everything a softness, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Wheat is defined by what it doesn't do. It doesn't interfere with the flavor of the barrel or of the other grain. I think that's what's cool about it. And it so I'd always wanted to do it, and I'd made on the 10-gallon size, we made I can't remember the exact bill, but it was a high wheat malt whiskey, It was a malt whiskey that was like 40-something% wheat.
Okay.
And it turned out really well. It was like a really, really soft malt whiskey.
Right.
And so I guess that's why I wanted to do it. And then, and we just kind of thought wheat whiskey would be pretty easy to market if we were doing it for the notes. We're trying to learn stuff. So it was just that one-off batch. We ended up getting 7 barrels from that.
Okay.
30-gallon barrels. So
right.
Barrel. And that was so we sold most of those. I believe 6 of the 7 barrels we sold to specs.
Yes.
So that's probably where you got
right,
that.
Right. And unfortunately, this is one that was sampled to me, so I don't have the actual bottle in front of me, but I think it was a 4-year-old cast strength single barrel that I think he said he got at specs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I don't know that I didn't sell it. We didn't sell it to specs, obviously.
I understand.
Who sold it to we were told sold it to specs. The malt whiskey, we ended up with one big 53-gallon barrel.
Okay.
Where it had been aged for 4 years in two 30-gallon barrels. We moved it out into one first use charred 53-gallon barrel where it sat for another year and a half. The wheat whiskey sat for 4.5 years, all in the same 7 30-gallon barrels. And those were all Minnesota oak.
Okay.
30-gallon charred white oak. It's a number. They're 30 gallons, so you almost doubled the surface volume.
Right.
In the barrel of whiskey to char.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's a number 3 char, so that's fairly deep. I think that represents quite a few major brands, but it's on the darker side, deeper side of char. Right. But yeah, that's what I think that those things are what contribute to the flavor.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a hard red winter harvested wheat.
Okay.
And I was told that is not quite as fruity as white, as soft white.
Right.
Wheat. But a lot of that is I'm taking that as for granted, because I think that the fruitiness in those Weissen beers that we all know and some of us love, I think that probably has more to do with the yeast.
Yes.
And really, I'd like to know what the difference is between different types of wheats and that sort of thing. But this was really one of the first chances we had to really play with that.
That's awesome. So let's move back. And let me just tell you, just from having the little, and of course, when I had it in the blind lineup, you don't know where it's at, and you're tasting other whiskeys with it. So it's like you can kind of get skewed on certain things. Obviously, all of the whiskeys in our lineup were amazing. So they were all great. And it was really cool to see you guys, and I'm going to say you're a smaller brand because you are, going against some juggernauts like Balcones and, Still Austin, right? So these guys are making 7-8 barrels a day. You're making what, 1 barrel a day, 2 barrels a day?
That'd be ambitious.
Okay. Well, let's go back there then. How in your production, like your still size and stuff like that. Let's go back there.
We ended up doing about a barrel every other day.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come off with 6 to 8 barrels every other week or every
Okay.
3 weeks, depending. And it really does matter when in the semester it is, because during the summer, when I usually don't have very much help, and we've got 120-degree ambient temperature in the still house, we don't get much done. And in the middle of the semester, we keep it rolling.
Right.
And this year, where we try to keep the still full.
Awesome.
But then again, during finals week, I usually plan on taking that off, because none of my employees are going to show up during finals.
Right. That's and it's so cool that you're able to employ, I call them kids. They're not kids, they're grown people, right? But employ these kids, and they're able to learn about the science of distillation, and also make a product, which is really cool. And do you ever see some of them come in early, and then at their, I don't know how long you've been doing this with the program or whatever, but have kids come in freshman year and stay to senior year and see a finished product that they've had hands in?
No, that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, we hire them when they're a junior, and at the time, the summer after their senior year, and they're weighing these different job opportunities.
Yeah,
and then it really is funny, because I've had people really would rather stay and get paid pennies to make whiskey and have fun, than to go get a real job.
Absolutely.
I mean, but I mean, this is a real job for some, but I'm not going to pay you a whole lot more than you would get paid at make chicken fingers.
Right.
Exactly. Just a lot. It's just a lot cooler than making chicken fingers. And so no, but we've had a lot of people, almost everybody come back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome. You almost always have them go to their generation and start knocking on barrels and saying, oh, hey.
Yeah. And like they sign the side of them or something, say, hey, I helped fill this barrel or something like that. They can come back to it and be like, hey, look, it's still aging. Can we pull a little sample off or whatever? Yeah,
they actually know which barrels were there. They'll go through my rick house and find these barrels. So yeah,
that's awesome.
And there are some barrels represent different things. I mean, I have barrels in there that are like, oh wow, that is evidence that I'm a genius. That day was so wonderful, and that whiskey is gonna taste so great. And then there are other days I can look at that barrel and just say, like, however much we sell that for, it'll never be worth it.
It's never going to be worth it. Exactly.
Never pay me back for what it took to make that bourbon.
Right. That's funny.
That's we're trying to get a consistent product on a very small scale, and we're trying to make the absolute best bourbon we can every single time. And it's a pot still. So we don't make compromises, but we're really on the stillest time, and the ambient temperature can change change our entire day. The humidity, and I've had power outages that actually shut down the building before, because we don't have a large scale generator to power 3-phase power.
Okay.
So like it ain't balconies.
Right. No, exactly. But so going back to your setup, are you running an electric rig?
No.
Okay.
a 970,000 BTU boiler.
Okay.
It is one of the large boilers in the area.
Okay.
Just to power my still and my kettle.
Okay.
So we fire. It's a gallon steam fired kettle. We boil our mash. By boil, I mean 185 degrees. Bring that up to 108. And we'll set it there. Bring down our temperatures. We'll cook in that, and transfer to our fermenters. Ferment for 4 days.
Okay.
And transfer over to still. Still was built by Trident Welding.
Okay. Yeah.
Now Trident Stills, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in Maine. So it's all 100% American steel.
Awesome.
Something that if you know what to look for, you can see where the Chinese and the German metal is.
Yeah.
In my factory, because it's so replete with with Trident.
Right.
We definitely benefit from having top of the line equipment, but it is still just a pot still.
Right.
So it's kind of a way of cheating to get a good product every time. We use quality product,
Right.
wholesome, and the ferment is, takes less than a week. And we know for a fact that we're either not going to get whiskey or we're going to get good whiskey. There isn't a whole lot that I do, honestly.
Right.
There's a point there on the day of the spirit run when I need to make a decision whether to cut between 160 proof to 165 proof. But to cut to tails.
Yeah.
There's a definitely, and you think 5% alcohol.
Right.
There's not that seems like a tiny little window, but no, on a spirit run day that lasts 26 hours,
Oh.
5% alcohol can last forever. And during that time, it goes from, the thing I like to, bourbon, the thing you notice is that the taste goes from sweet to savory over the course of that. And so the longer you let it run, the more oils, the more body, the more meat, and also just the more whiskey flavor it gets. The shorter the sooner you cut it, the lighter, or what they call smoother you'll get. So the longer you've been drinking, and the older you are, the more you'll tend to like it as it keeps on coming off the still after 155, 60.
Right.
And then as it keeps on dropping in proof, you'll start getting a little more musty, soft barnyard smells. But I'm old and I've been drinking a long time, and the longer that it comes off this pot still, the more usable alcohol I get now instead of later to put into my barrel now to make more money. So basically, the longer I let it run, not only does the whiskey taste better to me, but I also make more money. So it can hardly be objective at that point. Right. So really nice to have a younger guy who's not, who hasn't already bought into the company,
Right.
whose livelihood isn't at stake, to just come by and taste it off the still. And, oh yeah, no, that's great, boss. Keep letting it run. Or, oh, hey, wet dog. And as soon as you hear wet dog, you're like, oh, cut to tails.
Yeah.
And so that I forgot how I got off on that.
It's okay. It's okay. No, and I love it. I love it when the conversation just goes to geekery, because that's obviously, if anybody in listening's been following for a minute, I love to go down that road, like talking about attenuation of yeast and stuff like that. It's fine. But so, okay, let's talk about your first product. Did you always want to make bourbon, or were you like, hey, I want to make a malt, I want to make rum, I want to make, was it always bourbon up front, or was it like, hey, I just want to throw the gamut and kind of throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks?
It really was spaghetti at the wall, and at first I didn't care what stuck.
Okay.
It was just I kind of figured I could wing it, and
I love it.
And if people didn't like it, well, I mean, we would find out in 4 to 6 years. That's kind of the thing. I mean, it's this massive capital outlay for a product that you might find out if people like it, the finished product 4 years from now, if you're still in business.
Right.
And then, so people like the product, great. Now you got to package it and ship it out, and that could take months. And then you got to wait for the better part of a year to get paid for it. It's, it's
All right, I'm going to sneak in here real fast, guys. I won't keep you long. I wanted to talk about our sponsor today. That is none other than Hinterhouse Distilling. This is the Batch 3 American Single Malt, their Discovery Series, their collab with Dust Bowl Brewing Company. And I was talking to Nate the other day, and he said that this bottle is almost sold out. So if you want to get one, go over to hinterhousedistilling.com and pick you up a bottle. I've been sipping on this one. I sampled this one out a little bit to some people. We've had some really good reviews with it. So if you're into American Single Malt, and they also have bourbons and other things, their Warming Hut was an amazing cordial or holiday drink that they made. I don't know if that's available anymore, so you have to check the website. But one of the things I will say, these guys are grain to glass. They're doing everything in-house. They're trying to keep it as local and as terroir driven as possible. So go over there, check them out, hinterhousedistilling.com. They do have pretty good distribution, so you should be able to get you a bottle. So y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of the show. And until next time, keep your spirits up.
It's unlike a lot of product. It's unlike almost any other product in that, and just the fact that we owe taxes on it the moment that we make it.
Yes.
That is completely, there's no other product like that.
No, there's not.
I owe taxes the moment I made it, but before I can label it with a packaging that lets people know what it is, because that's what it is.
Right.
I have to get permission to call what it is from the government, who could and have told me that I'm not allowed to tell people what that is, because to tell people what that is would be deceptive.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, nobody at the government is going to deny it. Nobody at the labeling division at TTB would deny this. This is how this is done.
Wow.
Yes, if you called it whiskey, yeah, I honestly, it gets really complicated, but yeah,
I'm sure. I'm sure it does.
There is no other product like that.
Yeah.
If you diapers or ammunition or nuclear bombs, if you made a nuclear bomb and you slapped a label on it that called it a nuclear bomb, and you sold it as a nuclear bomb, and later on it turned out you sold somebody something that wasn't a nuclear bomb as a nuclear bomb, well, that's fraud. You can go after somebody for that. Or if you sold some nuclear bomb that wasn't supposed to get a nuclear bomb, well, that's some other crime, right? I mean,
right.
Then you can go after people for breaking the law. You don't have to get permission from the government to call a spade a spade.
Yes, sir. I totally understand what you're saying, because I've been fortunate enough to talk to a couple of people about this topic in itself, and it's really cool to see how people react to it, and they're like, I can't do this. Like, I'm trying to get label approval for a stupid whiskey that it tastes great, but we accidentally put honey in it. So now it's just distilled spirit specialty, but I can't even, it has to have a completely different color label, and it can't be reminiscent of the whiskey. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare, really.
Because it's whiskey with honey in it. I just want to call it whiskey with honey in it. No, that would be deceptive.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's so dumb, because I mean, we're, for us in America, especially, I know I have some overseas listeners, but for us in America, you have to be 21 to drink. So you're a grown adult. You can go fight for your country at 18, but we have to wait till we're 21 to drink. But anyway, you can. But so we're all adults drinking this beverage. If I hand you a glass and say, this is whiskey that I put honey in, what are you going to think it is? Whiskey that you put honey in. You're not going to think, oh, well, that's apple juice. It's the TTB saying that we're babies and we don't know what we're doing. And we have to be told everything, and we can't just use our minds, which I understand.
It's used in these communications.
Yes.
I mean, it is assumed that the public are small children. They are all small. None of you have a brain. And if I say you, I mean us.
Us.
Cannot be trusted to listen. And that's the thing, is you're also requiring me to use distilled spirit specialty. That tells you absolutely nothing about it. Which is more deceptive? Something that actually is what's in it, or distilled spirit specialty? Right.
I mean,
or words like moonshine, or things that by definition do not mean what they mean.
No, exactly. And so, like you guys at your tasting room, you sell a clear white dog spirit, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you call it moonshine?
We actually do not. It's not a spirit. It's whiskey.
Right.
Yes.
There you go. And
it's
see, that's the
goes for whiskey.
Right. And that's the thing that people get turned off about. They're like, oh, that's moonshine. No, it's not. That's whiskey. It's just not aged. I mean, it's unaged whiskey. That's all it is. But to make moonshine, you got to do other things to it. But
most of the country, most people in the United States, most people in the world who, in the whiskey drinking world, this is what people would have seen when you said whiskey. This is what people would have expected.
Yes, sir.
You handed them a brownish red liquid and said whiskey, they would want to know what was wrong with it. And, saying that we aged it for a very long time in burnt barrels would not make it sound tasty to someone living in the 1860s. Yeah. If it was any good, you shouldn't have had to age it. Right.
Absolutely. And so what are your thoughts on that? Obviously you sell a white whiskey, and I'm guessing if you sell it, it must taste fairly decent for you to sell it on, at the store. But, there's a big misconception where people say when you're making a clear whiskey, that you really don't have anything to hide behind, because the barrel does interact with the whiskey, and it does change the flavor and do all this stuff. So how do you feel when people are like, oh, I don't want to drink that because it's it's subpar whiskey? How do you feel about people when they say, I don't know if they've ever said it to you personally, but I hear that a lot when they're like, I don't drink white whiskey because it's not good.
Well, I think that has been, it was 13 years ago when White Owl started coming out, and
right.
a lot of the big name, these white whiskeys and moonshines that people were trying to sell, me included, to get their distilleries.
Right.
And moonshine was a popular term because it harkens back to the Prohibition era, and so I think that was, but because it's not a regulated term and it was trendy, and people just they put them together, they put them in one category together,
right?
And they said moonshine. And of course, that's a recipe for disaster, because you've taken the entire category and subsumed it under an unregulated term. And so the obvious next thing to do was to make money off the moonshine craze by taking crap spirit that you probably couldn't legally call rum. And that, if you can imagine. And calling that, slapping a moonshine label on it. I mean, it just, and so that's what most people who have been introduced to moonshine in in today's market, most people, when they've been introduced to moonshine, which they say, oh, moonshine, it's whiskey right off the still. This is what whiskey tastes like when it's right off the still. And then they pour them some crap that is, subpar vodka.
Right.
That's not White Dog. It's not a highly rectified White Dog.
Right.
It's just a really, really, really badly distilled vodka. And that, and so that's why people have that. That's why that's stuff. And I thought, I'll rise above, 2012, Nathan, 2000.
Yeah.
I'll rise above, and I'll never use the term moonshine, not in my personal communication, not in marketing, not label, and then we'll somehow be separated from that category.
Right.
But I'm afraid that most people still probably just see whiskey in a bottle of clear spirit and say, "Oh no, I already had moonshine when
Absolutely.
I swill, 8 years ago."
Yeah.
And then so they don't want to. And it is kind of a weird. It's a white whiskey. It's kind of a weird, sell.
It's a niche market for sure. There's only the nerd part, the whiskey nerd part is going to be like, I want to taste what it tastes like before it's been aged, and then do a side by side with the aged product and stuff like that. So like, I get it, but at the same time,
I don't even think that's our majority of our whistle stop drinkers. I think the majority of our whistle stop drinkers are people who, for whatever reason, it was at a party or something. Somebody introduced them, said, "Hey, you should try this," and they tried it, and they loved it. And they mix it, and they put it with they put it in margaritas. They make whiskey tonics, because gin and tonic's good because it the juniper oil balances the quinine.
Right.
That's why a vodka tonic is, the only people who actually order that are, psychopaths, because, like if you've ever had a vodka and tonic, it's like alcohol and quinine, and
Mhm.
and now like the only reason you would do that is because you hate yourself. But try my whistle stop with
Tonic.
with tonic water.
Wow. Okay.
It's interesting, even if but that's something that we used to do a lot at the bar, just to kind of to show people what the difference between this and what you're used to.
Right. Exactly. That's awesome. That's good to know, because like we're talking about misconceptions and stuff like that, and it just goes back to and it's up to us, both I and you, to inform the people that, hey, you're being led the wrong way. Like, this is wrong information. This is actually what it's like and what it's about. And that's one of the things I try to pride myself with. And it sounds like that's what you're doing as well. Okay. So when you started making,
trying, you're doing a better job than I am.
Don't say that. Don't say that. My supporters, I love you. All the other guys, kick rocks. It's fine. So when you started making barreling whiskey, when you decide, were you using even smaller barrels in the beginning, and then you've graduated up? Okay.
No.
Okay.
We decided 30-gallon barrels. My research was that 30-gallon barrels was where it was at.
Okay.
And that yes, you can still get a more mature tasting product in a shorter amount of time. And I've tried some very, very small barrel program bourbons that I thought were delicious and super sweet, and I'm into sweet bourbons. But you also pay money for that.
Absolutely.
30-gallon barrels cost just as much as a 53-gallon barrel, so I'm paying twice as much, almost twice as much, to barrel my whiskey.
Right.
And it just gets worse when you go down to 15 and 10 and 5. In 2021, during the crisis, the Suez Canal and the pine bark beetle and the all that stuff, that we couldn't get any barrels at all, and I called the cooperage that we usually work with, Barrel Mill in Avon, and I said, we've been buying from you since 2000. We're really small, we don't buy that much, but if there anything you guys could do for me, I would really appreciate it. And Cooper came back and he's like, you know what? We had a sale fall through. We've got 19 5-gallon number 5 char barrels. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had no idea. But I said, yeah, but put my name on them. They're mine.
Right.
I think those might have been the last 19 barrels
ever
in the United States at that time. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so yeah, we've made we've done quite a bit with those barrels. Those barrels have been very fun. But mostly we used it to keep up with College Station Texas corn whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah. That for the most part.
That's awesome. So kind of go through your skew of bottlings that you have, both at the
College Station Texas whiskey was a corn whiskey. The last few batches that we've done, it's been going into first use charred oak barrels, and we've been using 100% bourbon mash. So it's a young, I think 1 to 1.5 year old bourbon.
Okay.
So not quite straight,
right?
Bourbon. But I've been putting it in um, College Station labels. But we're switching up. It's going to be in the future. It'll College Station Bourbon.
Okay.
Boxcar is our blended whiskey.
Okay.
So I'll take my 1 or 3 barrels, hopefully in the 53-gallon size of our bourbon, just our regular whiskey distilled from a bourbon mash. Age once those barrels turn 4 years old, then we'll harvest them and blend them with neutral grain spirit that we buy from Gulf Coast distillers.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the only one of those 4 products that we buy spirit that we really distill on our still. I can make a neutral grain spirit on my still, but pot distilled vodka, I'd probably have to charge you about $150 a bottle for it. And again, nobody wants to pay me $100 for a pot distilled vodka. I mean,
no,
it's good. You'd like it, but you're not going to pay me $150.
No, sir. That's awesome.
But, so we buy that from Gulf Coast. We buy the neutral grain spirit portion of Boxcar. That's actually purchased from Gulf Coast distillers, and then we'll run that through a cellulose filter.
Okay.
The only one of ours that is run through a filter at all, but the filtration medium is just paper. We don't chill. And in fact, technically, the process we're using it doesn't technically meet the definition of filtration. So all of the products you're going to see sold with our logo on the front are unfiltered products.
Okay. Cool.
Have filtered some of the other contract brands that we've done for people. We will buy barrels from brokers or directly from some of the big guys, and we'll do your own private label, bourbon clubs, barrel club, that sort of thing.
Right.
And we've done that for distributors, restaurant owners, and private. So
that's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
That was actually what got us through the apocalypse.
Awesome. I mean, everybody talks about that in this industry. They're like, man, as soon as COVID hit, is like, oh God, everything was either balls to the wall. We got to get production going, or the door's shut. And so, luckily, you guys are still around, as well as some of these other ones. You're still around and still producing. But yeah, that took a hit on a lot of people, especially in the distilled spirits industry. But what it did was it made all of the online distributors, they skyrocketed. So it might be easier and I don't know if you work with any of them, but for somebody to get a product from you instead of having to drive to College Station or find it at the local specs or something like that. So that's one good thing that came out of it. You could buy a bottle from Seelbach or wherever. I'm not sponsored from any of them, so it doesn't matter. But you could buy a bottle from them and it would be from your label, which is really pretty cool, because when you're stuck at the house not doing nothing on your computer all day, you can still do a little shopping.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about distribution for a little bit. Where are you as of right now? Where are you distributed at? Or through?
There's a few stores in New York and New Jersey. And then bars and restaurants we've lost kind of track, but all over the world.
Oh wow!
Then, but it's primarily 98% of our sales are Texas.
Right.
And we're sold at every specs in the state. Total Wine and More carries our products. Twin carries our products. Whiskey Charlie's, Hollywood Liquor, Fat Dogs, Big Dogs, not that.
Whatever. Close enough. Okay.
But yeah. Stoney's, carries us too.
Cool. Cool.
So we've got a lot of buy-in in
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Specs was the Specs and Whiskey Charlie's. They were early on. They were early buyers, and really. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure.
So basically, any town in Texas, you can find.
Awesome. So when you get and if you can't go into details about this, I understand. But like, let's say Specs calls you or whatever, their broker or whatever calls you and says, "Hey, I need 2 pallets of whiskey," and you don't have 2 pallets of whiskey finished and aged. Do they have to wait for it, or do you just make sure you have enough bulk stock for when they call, or do they give you heads up that they're going to make a big order? How does that work?
But yeah, all 3 of those things. In fact, all 3 of those things can happen on the same order on the same day. So,
wow.
So, but yeah, and on our size, that has been a perpetual issue, outstanding or revival. 2020, we finally conquered that problem in 2020.
Okay.
The whole, not being able to keep up with orders, because we were able to keep up with them once they stopped.
Yeah.
But other than that, that one time in 2020, we have never really been able to keep up with all of the orders that come in for our products. This entire business has been a long litany of apologies. I apologize.
So,
I wish I could get you more. I wish we could make more, but if I wish you could go back into a time machine 4 to 6 years ago and talk to my banker.
Yeah. Absolutely there.
But that's the nature of this. That is the nature of this business.
So it's both a blessing and a curse. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, because you're like, you don't want to sit on barrels of whiskey for any longer than you need to, because you got to make money on them, right? But at the same time, if you can't keep up with production, and most people know this, but sometimes brokers they don't know this. The whiskey has to age. Like, you have to let it sit. You can't just, distill it and throw it on the back of the truck. So like, you have to have aged stock. So like, it turns into a thing. Like, I can get you some stock, but it might be younger stock. And, you don't want that. You were trying to make a consistent product, so yeah, I can see how it would be a blessing and a curse. But again, if they're calling in orders, that's a good sign, because you're selling bottles.
Exactly. You got spirits buyers, marketers, restaurant managers, bartenders, customers, all second guessing you and frustrated with you for financial decisions you made 6 years ago.
Right.
I am sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize for everything.
You have to. You have to. If you've been married for a minute, just apologize for it, even if you didn't do it.
Exactly.
I love you, babe. Not you. No, but it's true. And I mean, again, a blessing and a curse, but I guess this goes into my next, and it could be my final if we need to go, but when you have these times when you're like, how are we going to meet production? We have, all these orders that need to go out, and we still need to get some other stuff for the tasting room and stuff like that. Do you ever just get overwhelmed and want to just say, we're done, we're closing the doors?
No.
Okay, cool. No, I like that. I like that because I hear some people say almost daily. So,
I can't imagine going and getting a job at this point. I would, I make whiskey.
Yeah.
For a living. I mean, really, that kind of says it all.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. You're right. I get it. So like, even like your worst day at work still beats sitting behind a desk, right? So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Even when I'm sitting behind a desk.
Yeah, exactly. At least you have a whiskey bottle in front of you, right? Hopefully you're not drinking it while you're behind the desk, but still, it's, unless you're tasting, right? Obviously you got to taste through the stuff, but
I'm surrounded by barrels. I'm surrounded by gallons and gallons and gallons of coping mechanisms.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So my final question, even though it's the second final question, but, so how do you, when you don't feel like a whiskey, what is something outside of your brand that you tend to go to? You were talking about a gin and tonic and stuff like that. Is there a specific brand, like, let's say some people really like Buffalo Trace or whatever. Is there a specific brand that you go to when you're not, because you sip your stuff all day doing tasting and blending and all that stuff? Is there a specific brand that you go to outside of your own, I guess is what I meant.
Yeah. I really, really like Zeppelin Bend.
Okay.
I haven't been able to find it for a little while. But anything that's made by New Holland Distilling Company and Jester King.
Okay.
Their wheat whiskey is insane. And their bourbon just over the top, sweet, really sweet.
Wow. Okay.
That's kind of what I wanted to think into is like sweetness. So
right. Exactly. Okay. Awesome. Was there anything else we needed to go over before I let you go? I'm trying to think.
I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, it's all good. So, do you guys have a website? You want to any social media you want to promote?
Yeah, www.riobrazosdistillery.com.
Okay.
And then Rio Brazos Distillery on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you for coming on here and hanging out with me for the second time and taking time out of your day. And I really appreciate it. Guys, go find you some Rio Brazos. They're doing some really cool stuff. Obviously, I already killed that little sample. I'm going to have to go get me a bottle now. So y'all be good, be safe. And as always, keep your spirits up.